Hello and welcome. Today's episode is going to be about healthy eating. I'm going to share with you what has helped me to substantially improve my own diet over the long term, how I managed to give up chocolates and sweets for one whole year, and what I do now to keep things sustainable and have a relationship with food that is healthy and rewarding. Quick disclaimer about eating disorders. I'm not a medical professional, and if you have a serious condition such as an eating disorder or diabetes or pre-diabetes, then I recommend that you see an expert. This is just me sharing what I have found useful in my own personal journey and passing that on to you. So with that said, let's crack into it. So I thought I'd start the video by talking about why you might want to improve your diet. Almost by definition, having a healthy diet is better for you than having an unhealthy diet. Now, what a healthy diet or an unhealthy diet means can vary between different people. So someone like Dwayne Johnson is going to have different dietary requirements than someone like myself. But there are some common themes which apply to pretty much everybody. And one of those themes is reducing your unhealthy sugar intake. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to use the word sugar to refer to sugary treats such as chocolate, fizzy drinks, candy, all those kinds of things, right? That's how I'm going to use it for simplicity's sake in this video. My diet at the moment is actually pretty decent. I don't have fizzy drinks. I don't drink fruit juice. Fruit juice isn't actually nearly as good for you as eating the fruits as fruits because of the way your body digests it. I don't have much chocolate. I have it about once a week. I eat a lot of fruit and veg, and I'm fairly happy with how things are going, although there are ways that I want to improve it further down the line. There are a lot of benefits to eating in a more healthy manner, right? You get reduced risks of various illnesses. You can see increases in your energy. And I've also found that it's helpful for my mood, right? So eating a lot of spinach and stuff, it just seems to elevate my mood up by 10% or some other amount. This is partly because eating lots of leafy greens is good for your brain and your body, right? But the focus of today's video is on how we can reduce those snacks, those types of sugar, which when eaten excessively can be of detriment to your health. So recently I read a book called Good Sugar, Bad Sugar, right? I'm going to link down to it below. And I'm kind of divided as to how I feel about it. On the one hand, I think it has some very good points about where our desires for sugar come from. But on the other hand, it might be a bit pseudosciencey and unsubstantiated, right? There's not a huge amount of scientific evidence talked about in the book. It's also quite extreme in its recommendations, so it suggests cutting out sugar entirely, forever, full stop. Now, that is not the method I'm going to talk about in today's video, but I am going to draw on some of the ideas that I learned about in the book, as I think they do have some merit, there is something behind them, and they are based on a method that has been used to help many people give up smoking as well. It's based on Alan Carr's easy way to stop smoking, which apparently people like David Cameron have used to quit smoking. Don't know what you think of David Cameron, but the point is that there may be something to this method, right? So if you read it, I would read it with a skeptical eye, but just see if there's anything there which rings true with things you've experienced in your own life. One of the principles talked about in the book is the way that we are conditioned to enjoy sugary treats from a young age. As a child, it's what you're given as a reward for a lot of families, right? You will see them at kids' parties, everyone's eating cake and chocolate and sweets. And if you repeatedly eat this kind of food, your affinity for it can increase, right? This is known as an acquired taste. And the more that you have of it, the more that you can develop a dependence on it. People who drink a lot of coffee and a lot of caffeine, a lot of them start to find that eventually they become dependent on the caffeine in order to have the level of energy that they want. But they're spending money on something which just brings them back up to the baseline that they were at initially. So it doesn't seem like a very sustainable method. And something similar happens with sugar, right? You can get a mild sugar rush and then maybe your energy decreases afterwards. So there are definitely going to be some benefits, if only, at least in terms of how much you're spending on it, but also in terms of your health, to basically learning how to keep it in moderation. Now, there is the opposing argument, which goes, look, people enjoy things like sugar, right? People actually like these tastes. There's an art to creating them, and we shouldn't just banish them entirely if you don't want to, because there could be something to that. I take that point, and that is something which is going to come up later when I describe the method that I've used to moderate and track my sugar intake, because I haven't cut it out entirely. I still eat it, but not nearly as much as I did before. But the point I want to make here is that just as the affinity for these types of treats can be created, they can also be uncreated. And I've done this several times. By the end of the method that I'm going to talk about, you will not actually want sugar or sugary treats as much as you did before if it's been successful. So this brings us to the question, should you go cold turkey with sugar? Now, some things might be good to cut out cold turkey, right? So for some people who are alcoholic, they decide to cut out alcohol entirely after a certain point. I don't think sugar is necessarily inherently addictive enough to warrant such a drastic change, but if you did want to cut it out entirely, it is possible for you to do that. In 2015, I decided to give up chocolate and desserts for a whole year, and I would still have desserts such as fruit salad if I was at a restaurant or someone's house and that was offered, but things like chocolate, things like ice cream, jelly, all that stuff went out the window. And here is what I experienced. After about a month, I got noticeably more energy. The desire for chocolate had pretty much decreased to about zero, or very little, right? There was no debating in my head, should I, shouldn't I? When I was in the shops, looking at the chocolate, I kind of just forgot about it as an option. And my dependence on it went down as well. And there was just very little desire for it after a certain amount of time. And the only real reason that I started having these chocolates and sweets once more was because I wanted to see what it would taste like after a year of not having it. So there's a video of me trying a chocolate cookie right after the year was over on January the 1st, 2016. And I remember thinking that when I was eating it, I didn't really like the taste that much. I didn't really enjoy the sensation of eating it. And this was because my desire for it, my dependence on it had gone, right? But a few weeks later, before you know it, I developed a sweet tooth once more. And this is because I kind of said, well, may as well try it. Maybe there's something to this. And before you know it, I was kind of eating it pretty regularly once again, right? What I learned from this experience is that the idea of giving up sugar entirely can have a drawback in that it's not necessarily a sustainable solution. In reality, you may end up having these again, right? If you actually think about what's likely, it's probably quite likely that you will have them again in your life. So I would warn you against the following trap: dramatically declaring to yourself that you'll never eat it again, last several weeks or whatever it is, and then relapsing and having it once more. Rather than doing that, why not try the following method, which is the method that I have seen the most success with. So here is my method for weaning off a mild sugar dependence. As I said, see a doctor if it's a more serious issue, but if it's more of a sweet tooth issue, then see what you think of the following method. First step, and remind yourself this repeatedly throughout the process. Eventually, you will probably feel better without having lots of sugar in your life, even if it doesn't feel quite as good initially. Write that down or find some way of reminding yourself that. The other thing to remind yourself of is that after using the method, the cravings for the sugary treats will be less, even if they're more noticeable initially. Write those down, find a way to remind yourself of those for later. Step 2, cut out the desserts and the sweets and all that cold turkey. But you don't need to go for a whole year like I did. just do it for a few weeks and go until your desire for sugar has decreased significantly. So for me, I think when I did this, it took me about 4 weeks. I didn't have to go for a whole year. It was just long enough such that I'd kind of got over the withdrawal symptoms, which involve feeling a bit tired, feeling a bit restless, feeling a little bit like the giving up was not worth it because I felt worse than I did when I was having it. So what was the point? These withdrawal symptoms, when you're going through them, remember to look back at your reminder that you will feel better afterwards and you will desire it less afterwards, okay? Step 3, and this is something to do at the same time as step 2, is as you go through, introduce healthier foods such as carrots, cucumbers, spinach, nuts. Introduce those into your diet more. Start buying them, start snacking on them. When you feel an urge to have sugar, just have a piece of fruit or just have a bit of sliced up cucumber or nuts or whatever it is. Use these as an alternative. People have even described fruits as nature's candy, and that's because, yes, it does contain a certain amount of sugar and it is quite sweet, but it's a healthier alternative to the other kinds of snacks. And while you're going through these withdrawal symptoms, feel free to eat a certain amount of fruit. In fact, eat a certain amount of fruit because it's good for you as you go through. Step 4, after several weeks, after your detox, deliberately reintroduce foods such as chocolates, candy, cakes, or whatever it is back into your life, but only in small amounts and less frequently than before. What I found as I've done this is that my desire for the sugary treats has gone down and smaller amounts are more satisfying, yet I don't have to hold myself to this standard of, oh, I could never have this again. Smaller amounts, as I said, tend to be much more satisfying than they were when I was having the chocolate every day. Just the other day I had some minstrels. They're a little type of candy that we have here in the UK for anyone not from the UK. By the end of the packet, and it was a fairly small packet, I was really feeling like I'd got my quota for that week or whatever it was, right? It was a satisfying, sweet experience. And it was cool, right? It was cool. I had my chocolates, I ate it, and that was it. I went a few more days and then had something else, and that's just kind of how it's been, right? In this way, you can get the best of both worlds. You can literally have your cake and eat it, but you can have the cake infrequently enough such that it doesn't take a toll on your system. A treat once a week is not going to do much damage for you, and having it once a week is arguably even better than going cold turkey entirely because it reduces the stress. If you have one, it's not a big deal, right? There are different ways in which you could measure the amount of sugar that you're having. So you could write it down, you could get some kind of tracking app or make a note of it, but you'll know this method has truly worked when you don't feel the cravings for it quite as much. One way to manage the cravings as well is sometimes when you feel that craving during the withdrawal period, just find ways to distract yourself from it, honestly. So things like reading, picking up a new instrument, or watching a TV show, or socializing, some kind of stimulation, right, will help you because it provides your mind with something to do and something that you can enjoy. And that is pretty much it. I'm going to talk more about healthy eating. I have other videos that I want to make on this subject, but for now, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. As always, there's going to be more resources in the description. So if you like this video, check those out. Also, give me a like, and thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace.